Hello everybody and welcome back to another video for our Christmas countdown. The last few videos that we've done have focused primarily on reading and how you can help your child to read. What we haven't actually talked about yet though is what about just teaching reading from a very early age and how children begin to read fluently. So this video will be all about fluency as a skill, what that means, what it looks like, and yeah, how you can help your child to improve their fluency. So during the video, I'm going to do three things. One, talk about what the Department for Education says about what children should be able to do to read fluently and what that looks like in practice. Go through a few strategies that will help your child to read. So the things that we use in school to enable children to read fluently. And finally, to show you what that might look like in practice. So to give you an example of a child not reading fluently, and then another example of a child reading fluently using those strategies. So let's get straight into it. So first of all, what is fluency? Well, fluency, as defined sort of in the dictionary, is the ability to read a text accurately, quickly, and with expression. Now, I would say there was a little bit more to it than that when you look at early reading for children, because there's also an element of them understanding what they're reading, not just being able to read every word, but also being able to tell you what it means afterwards. Now, according to the Department for Education and the assessment framework that assesses children at the end of Key Stage 1, which is the assessment they currently do at the end of Year 2, says this. In order for a child to be at the expected standard where they should be, they must be able to read accurately most words of 2 or more syllables. Okay, read most words containing common suffixes. So if you weren't aware of what a suffix is, it's something that goes on the end of a word, like ly, for example. Anything that we add to the end of a word, it could change its meaning, like quick to quickly. That bit that we've added at the end is a suffix. Another common one is ed. Okay, I'm sorry about that, but ed is another common one that is used when we're writing words in the past tense. So they can read common suffixes. Common exception words, read most of them. Now, just make a note here, most. That's not saying they have to be able to know all common exception words, but the majority of them, when they come up in a text, they can read them. And in age-appropriate books, so that means in books that they should be able to read for their age, pupils can read most words accurately without overt sounding and blending. That's without relying too much on having to stop at a word and sound it out and then blend it together using their phonics. So yes, they are allowed to use their phonics, but without overt sounding and blending when they're relying on it too much, and sufficiently fluently to allow them to focus on their understanding rather than on decoding individual words. Now, that bit's really interesting, because if a child is struggling to read fluently and you notice that your child is having to sound out a lot of words, stopping to try and work out what the word means, they're using a lot of their brain power to just try and decode those words. And what will normally happen is by the end, although they've put all that effort into reading it, they might not be able to tell you what those words mean or what the general meaning of the text was. So being able to read fluently is being able to get through that text without having to stop so many times to sound out. And as a result, they'll be able to tell you what the text has been about also. Sound out most unfamiliar words accurately without undue hesitation. So they are allowed to sound out a word that maybe they've never come across before, but again, without undue hesitation, without pausing too much. In a book that they can already read fluently, so this is one that's potentially that they've seen before, they check it makes sense to them, correcting any inaccurate reading. So if they do make a mistake, they know it's a mistake and they go back and they just check it and read it again. And then these last two are not necessarily to do with fluency, but if a child is understanding what they are reading, they can answer questions and make inferences, and they can explain what has happened so far in what they have read. So if your child is in Year 2, or perhaps they're working towards this in Year 1, and will be in Year 2 next year, this is essentially what the teacher will use to make a judgment about your child's reading. So if they're able to read fluently at the expected standard, what does that look like, and how do we help our child to be able to do that? Well, first of all, I wanted to share with you this. So this is a fluency checker. So part of the children reading, we try to pick out what it is that they can't do. So if a child is not reading fluently, maybe they're not pausing when they see full stops. So when they get to an end of a sentence, they're not taking that correct pause. Maybe they're not pausing when they see a comma. They're just reading straight through. Potentially, if somebody's talking in the text or they see an exclamation mark, perhaps they're not reading with expression. They're not changing their voice. So it's an important thing for them to do to be able to read with expression. They can read to the end of a sentence. Some children will stop midway through a sentence, not realizing that you don't stop until you get to the end of the sentence. And finally, they change their voice when somebody else is speaking. So we have this fluency prompt card here with the children when they're reading, potentially with a partner, or you could even use it at home as a visual prompt to help your child when they're reading, to remind them of these things. Okay, and if they do these things, then you know that the child can read fluently. I am pausing when I see a full stop. I am pausing when I see a comma, but look here, it's a short wait for a comma, okay, a longer wait for a full stop. I read with expression when I see an exclamation mark. Either a character is shouting, is angry, or is upset in some way, or even excited. I read to the end of a sentence, and I can change my voice when someone is speaking. So here is that prompt sheet. If I just zoom out, you can see the whole thing. The visuals are very important. Okay, they help children who potentially find too much text on a page. They can just use these visual prompts to quickly remember what it is they need to do. So there are some things to help with as a prompt to remind your child how to read fluently. And now let's jump over to a book. So this book is called Rowing Boats, and it's an age-appropriate book for a child in sort of year 7-year-old child, so sort of year 2 sort of age, okay, when they would be assessed. And I'm going to start off by just reading it without any fluency at all, and just make a note of the things that I'm not doing, and think back to that fluency prompt card that I just showed you, because these are some of the things that we notice the children do in school. So let's begin. Wilf, Chip, and Craig were going out on the river. Floppy went too. We'll take those rowing boats, said Dad. Good choice, said Jay. They put the picnic things into the boats and got in. Forget the coat, said Wilf. Can I row? Asked Chip. Yeah, yes, I'll show you, said Dad. You have a go, Craig, said Dad with both hands. Let's stop for the picnic, called Chip. But those stones, said Dad. We can unload the boats, said Chip. Hand me your coat, said Craig. These plums taste very good, said Craig. Homegrown, said Dad. Don't be annoying, Floppy, said Wilf. His bones, what he wants with his bones, said Chip. Suddenly there was a loud noise. What's that? Asked Wilf. I hear voices, said Chip. The boys are trying to throw a rope over a big stone. And I'm going to stop there. So, let me explain. Now, it's very difficult for me to try and show you all the different kinds of things and that children struggle with reading just myself here, because I've tried to highlight some different things there, but not all children will be doing all of those things. Some will be struggling with potentially noticing the full stops and commas. Some of them will be struggling just sounding out words. So I've tried to show you sort of a range of different things by just reading that way. So what did I not do? Well, first of all, I didn't pause at the commas, all right, which is something that children do. They'll just read straight through. And I didn't pause at the full stops. So it loses the meaning because I've not taken any pauses Okay, I just read straight through the sentence. Wilf, Chip, Craig were going out Rye River, Floppy went too. And it is something that children do. They do this. So that's why we have on our prompt sheet that you try to pause when you see a full stop. It's a long wait. And you pause when you see a comma. It's a short wait. So if I just go back now and have a go at reading it with that punctuation. Wilf, Chip and Craig were going out on the river. Floppy went too. So you can see it's completely changed the meaning of the sentence. From reading it, noticing the punctuation, I can follow the story much more easily. And now, this next section, so we have some speech here, and we know that Dad is saying it, so perhaps we want to change our voice slightly. And we've got another bit of speech, good choice, said Jay. Okay, so we can change our voice for each character, which is what we should be doing if we're reading fluently, but also making a note of the punctuation, taking the pauses where we should be. We will take those rowing boats, said Dad. Good choice, said Joy. So here again, trying to get the children to change their voice. They might need to read it a couple of times to just get the hang of that. They put the picnic things into the boats and got in. Now, for this sentence, I want you to make a note of this word, they. Because there are some words that the children aren't able to sound out using their phonics. They just have to know them. And these types of words are called common exception words. Here is the list of common exception words the children will need to know when they leave year 1. I'll pause slightly here so you can have a good look at them. And have a think now, does your child know how to read these words? And if we just look here, you can see the word they is part of this list. So when they came back to read that text, they shouldn't be having to sound out they should just be able to recognize it and read it. A good game you can play is if you get a printout of these words, or you could ask your teacher for a printout of the words. You could take them home, play games of pairs, where you turn them over on the table and see if you can each read them. You could flick through the words really quickly to see how quickly the child can read the words. Make it fun, and then there's more chance of the child remembering them. Year 2, the list gets a little bit longer, so they'll still need to know the year 1 words, but now you've got the year 2 common exception words. By the end of year 2, the children should be able to read these words. But thinking back to the assessment framework, it also says here, read most common exception words. So if there are still some on here of the tricky ones, for example, like beautiful, possibly Christmas, they should know how to read that one. Parents, they should know that one. But if there is other ones that they find tricky on here, it's not uncommon for children not to be able to read every single one, but that's what we're aiming for by the end of year 2. So going back to the book then, they is a common exception word. The child should be able to read that. And if we think about the fluency, let me read a little bit more fluently now, thinking about those things. Now, what I'm also wanting to do is if I think back to my prompt card here, I'm taking those pauses for stops. I'm taking those shorter pauses for commas. If I see an exclamation mark, can I read with expression? Can I read to the end of the sentence? And can I change my voice when somebody is speaking? So let's have a go. They put the picnic things into the boats and got in. Don't forget the coats, said Wilf. Can I row? Asked Chip. Yes, I'll show you, said Dad. You have a go, Craig, said Dad, with both hands. So here you can see that I've changed my voice slightly because Chip is obviously asking to row. Think about how he might be feeling. He's going to be quite excited, so try to say it in an enthusiastic way. Can I row? Asked Chip. Okay. Let's stop here for a picnic, called Chip. But not by those stones, said Dad. We can unload the boats, said Chip. Hand me the coats, said Craig. Now also, when I was reading before, I was struggling to read this word, boats. Now that word and the word coats have been put into this book on purpose because the children should be applying their phonics. That sound, O-A there, is a sound they should have learned in year 1 when they did their phonics lessons. Now what the children then should be able to do is apply it in a reading book by saying, we can unload the boats. Now, they should recognize the sound, and hopefully, as they practice more, they're not having to sound it out at all. We can unload the boats, said Chip. Hand me the coats, said Craig. These plums taste very good, said Craig. Homegrown, said Dad. Don't be so annoying, Floppy, said Wilf. He wants his bones, said Chip. Suddenly, there was a loud noise. What's that? Asked Wilf. I can hear voices, said Chip. So the way I've read this section here is to show that suspense and anticipation, because we know something is happening, okay? That's where, again, the children might change their voice slightly. So going back to that prompt sheet, I can change my voice when somebody's speaking. Can they do that if it's to show that somebody is excited or something is about to happen? The boys were trying to throw a rope over a big stone. Just then, Joe fell into the river, and the rope fell in too. Oh no, said Roy. Get hold of the rope. So here you can see our first exclamation mark, and it is to show that something terrible is happening. So when I read this section here, I need to make it sound like something bad is happening. Oh no, said Roy. Get hold of the rope. Too late, said Joe. The boat was floating away. Again, you've got that exclamation mark with a character speaking in a way that he's worried, he's a bit scared, the boat's about to float away, so we need to be able to read with expression here. Roy tried to catch the boat, but he fell in too. Suddenly, Floppy jumped into the river. He wants to join in and help, said Chip. Now notice how I've got a comma here and a full stop. The children need to be able to pause, a short pause when they see those commas. Keep reminding them of doing that. Look, said Craig, Floppy is going for the rope. Floppy got the rope in his teeth. Good boy, Floppy, called Chip. Right, I'm not going to carry on to the end of the story. I'm going to go back to our fluency checker. So that time when I read the book, you will have noticed that I tried to pause and take a long wait with full stops. With commas, I paused for a short wait, okay? I read with expression when I saw an exclamation mark. But be careful, not all exclamation marks show that characters are excited. For example, in our story, the boy was a bit worried and scared. So I needed to show that when I saw the exclamation mark. I read to the end of a sentence and then took a pause when I saw my full stop. And I changed my voice when characters were speaking. So, that is what your child is aiming to do when they read a book at their age group, okay? Or even if it's not their age, you're looking to try and get them to read in this way. At the same time, they have to try and apply the phonics that they learnt in year 1. I'm going to be putting some more videos on for phonics because I know that's something that parents often need help with. So look out for those on the channel. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.